I would like to thank President King and Vice President Hannon for being with us tonight to help educate us on the financing of our university. And with that, I'd like to let you guys make your opening remarks.
It almost sounds like a trial here. but first of all, thank you very much for inviting us here. This is really a remarkable and wonderful opportunity for us to interact directly with students, which those of us in the administration building don't often have. You may know that I spent 15 years mostly in the classroom and doing research before I switched to mostly administration. And so I've been in higher education now as a faculty member and as a leader in various institutions for 30 years or more. And so that's the perspective I come from. But I'm really impressed with what happens here at Ball State University. I have to say Ball Bearings is an award-winning magazine. It wins national awards. It certainly is something that we look forward to bragging about to all of our constituencies out there. So we really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. This is an important topic, and I have to tell you, my years in higher education, this has been the most important change over that period of time. And I think those of you who've been around as faculty members, perhaps in higher education for a long time, have seen these changes happen. It's a huge area of discussion. We can talk about that. I'll make some very general comments about what's happening nationally. And then Mr. Hannon will talk more about some more facts and figures and specifics for Ball State, put into those contexts. But what's happening here is not unusual. First of all, you have to realize that there are literally a couple thousand, almost 2,500 universities and colleges across the country. Now, most of those are private. There's about 500 public colleges and universities, and Ball State is actually considered a public research university. We're characterized as one of the top 10%, perhaps, in that large category. So we're a large, well-known university doing the comprehensive education and scholarship that you would expect of a major state university. Over the last 15, 20 years, we have seen a shift in the funding, and we've seen different demands placed upon universities. There is actually a very good study out there I'll refer you to that just came out from the American Academy of Arts and Sciences called Public Research Universities, Understanding the Financial Model. And it's really focused on universities like Ball State. So for example, it gives a lot of figures nationally for the drivers of rising tuition at public universities between 2001 and 2011 over that decade. 6% increase due to spending on construction, new construction, about 6% increase on administration and support. A large number of new regulations have come to higher education over the past 20 years. A lot of regulations. There's been a lot of work done with that. 9% increased spending on instruction. Often that's associated with the new technologies that are associated with instruction. Ball State's really good with that. And nearly 80%, 79% of the increase in tuition at public research universities has been associated with the decreases in state support. One time, probably starting with the Morrill Land Grant Act in the 1860s, universities were seen as the drivers of economic development, the education of the masses, helping people move up the economic ladder. And so those were heavily financed by the state. And over the years, the demands in the states for other things, increased costs associated with other drivers, the non-discretionary demands on state budgets have pushed, and universities have given. So that's what's really been an important factor for us. I can tell you that those of us here, as well as all my colleagues in higher education across the country, take this matter very seriously, spend a lot of time. Bernie and I and the rest of the cabinet members spend a good fraction of our time looking at how we can conserve money and put it where we think it deserves to go. You'll find that at an institution like ours, almost all of our major operational expenses are associated with personnel. So for a college, for example, a college's budget, like College of Communication, Information, and Media, probably over 85 to 95% of the operational budget is for salaries. And so that is what often is looked at when we try to make efficiency moves. Let me stop at that point. I know you'll have a lot of questions later. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hannon here, who can give you some figures about Ball State and maybe put things in perspective. Besides, he really does understand all the details of the budget here, every penny. So,
thank you, Terry. How are you? So you stole like everything I was going to say, and so I don't have that much to say. By the way, I feel a bit like Dave and Oprah up here in these chairs. I won't say which one's which. But I actually count about, so first of all, I mean, the magazine is great. So congratulations to everyone who worked on this. It's a wonderful piece. It's chock full of information and very, very, I thought, interesting and insightful. And so congratulations, very nice. I actually count about 4,600 colleges and universities in the country. If you include all of the Jim Bod's Bake Shop and business school, and any accredited college where a student can take federal money and go is an accredited university. And so with almost 5,000 colleges, a lot of times we tend to paint with kind of a broad brush. So you say a college, and it can be anything from Harvard to Yale to Stanford to Ball State to Ivy Tech to Jim Bob's Bait Shop to online colleges. So they're all different, and they all have a little different model. And so sometimes we tend to paint a little too broadly when we talk about college, because they're all a little bit different. And sometimes we tend to overgeneralize, and we hear, these memes that come out, the skyrocketing tuition, the administrative bloat, the runaway this or that. Just remember, it's not the same for everybody, and you shouldn't want to paint every single college the same way. We should look a little more carefully at what we're talking about, and at Ball State, we're talking about Ball State. And then just bear in mind that Ball State is a very complex organization, this type of college. We've got 20,000 students here. We've got almost 4,000 employees. We're basically a city. I mean, sure, we instruct. We have teachers and students in classrooms, but we have buildings, and we have roads, and we have infrastructure. We have hotels, basically, and restaurants, and entertainment, and sporting events, and power plants, and police. We are a very large, complex organization, not unlike really a medium-sized city, and all that requires a fair amount of money to keep running and a lot of complexity to sort of organize and make sure that's operating appropriately. And then Terry also talked a little bit about the shift in public policy and funding. So the first country in this college was founded in 1636, Harvard. We had probably a dozen or so colleges operating in this country before the American Civil War. They sort of blew up a great deal after the American Civil War and into the 1862 Morrill Land Grant Act, where the federal government gave tons of land to states to start colleges. Those were all the A&Ms, Texas A&M, Alabama A&M. Indiana has an A&M, but they call it Purdue. Ball State was founded in the giant wave of teachers' colleges, or normal schools as they were called, back at the turn of the last century. We were born in the last century. And Ball State has grown up now through the Industrial Revolution and World War II and the rise in the research campus, and now Ball State is a full-fledged, bona fide research campus, and it's one of these big, complex sort of organizations that requires a lot of management and money. So most of our money at Ball State comes from you all, from student fees and from state appropriations. And indeed, state appropriations have dropped precipitously, not just at Ball State, but in the country. And some of that is related to the Great Recession that hit the U.S. Every 10 years or so, there's a recession. It's been that way since the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. We got into a recession in 2004, and we thought, oh well, it's just another recession. We'll grow back out of it. And then the Great Recession hit in 2008-9, and we have to this point really never fully recovered from the 2004 recession. So Ball State, for example, and I have data going back to about the 1960s, but from about 1970 to 2004, Ball State could count on about a 5.5% increase in state funding every year. The taxpayers are giving a 5.5% increase, which is a nice number. Since 2004, our state appropriation increase is zero. We're operating on the same money that we had in 2004, and it's not unusual across the country. Indiana, as a state, is a relatively low-income state. You probably know we're now down, I think, 38th in the country in per capita income, so we just don't have a lot of tax revenue in the first place. And as Terry said, there are a lot of demands on the budget. And as you also know, there's been a pretty good backlash against government. When government is sort of seen as a bad thing and overspending and overreaching and so on. And so there just hasn't been much desire to put money into government and into taxes, and there have been a great wave of tax cuts. So as taxes are cuts and As incomes go down, there's less tax revenue to distribute to the universities. So I'm not pointing the finger at the General Assembly. They have done a wonderful job in keeping us where we are. Many states have had huge cuts in their funding. For us to be at least staying the same, compared to some of our peers, we're sort of holding our own. But because of that, our costs keep going up. People expect raises around here every year. The cost of pencils and papers and computers and lawnmowers and technology and all these things go up every single year. Healthcare is one of the really big drivers. So we have to have revenue to fund cost. And so the cost gets pushed off onto students. And some of that is, I think, a very deliberate public policy. So as Terry said, colleges grew up in this country as a way of improving the country. In the early days, it was just being able to build a city and not everyone die of dysentery. You need a way to move, the sewer system and get people through the towns, and you had to build bridges. And then we wanted some ability to be able to know how we could increase our production of grain and food to feed the country, and extending the electric infrastructure and so on. And so colleges grew up doing all those things, curing cancer and in advances in medicine and so on. And that was the way that people looked at higher education. It was a public good. It helped the public wheel become a better place. And now people look more at college as sort of a private good. So when you all graduate from college, hopefully you get jobs and you make income. And we know that people who graduate from college have on average much higher incomes than people who don't. And so you benefit from your college education. And so why shouldn't you pay for it? Why should the collective taxpayer pay for you to make more money? And that's the argument. And so higher education always has been on the public sector sort of this balancing act between how much should come from the public taxpayer as a collective payment and how much should come from the individual who attends college. And clearly the fulcrum has switched so that more and more we're putting the cost off on the individual and on the family and less on the public. Now, some of that I think is intentional. Some I think is just sort of an unintended consequence of cutting taxes and running out of money. But to me, that's sort of the really big, I think, public policy issue that's pressing this country is, how much do we as a collective taxpayer want to support education in general, but particularly in higher education. So I probably talked too long, but that's
No,
sort
that
of
was
my
great.
introduction.